مرحبا يا شباب. Welcome back to the new video. By the way, before I start now with the task class, our entity, I wanted to just say to you, every video I record, where you see part 1, part 2, part 3, part so and so, I will create an extra branch, and you can always check out the branch on my GitHub page. Let me show it to you. If you go to github.com and /habibicoding, you should see here now all my repositories, and this is the repository of the current tutorial. Here you can find all the necessary branches I provided. And yeah, we have now part 1 and part 2. I recently checked out part 3. When I'm done with the implementation, I will push it, and you will find also that on GitHub. And without further ado, let's start. Yalla! So, first we want, as I mentioned, we want to create our task class, which will be our entity. And for that, I will create a new package, call it data. And here I will create my class, which will be, of course, a Kotlin class. We call it task. And yeah, of course, we want to add it to GitHub, to Git version control. Okay, now we have our task class. And as I said to you before, this class will be our entity. So we have to annotate it with as entity. And as you can see, we got here the correct suggestion, which will, the entity annotation will be imported from the Jakarta Persistence package. Yes, so next we will do the next annotation, which is table. The table should, the entity annotation is basically here as a helper to say, okay, this task class should be treated as an ORM by the Java Persistence API, and the add table annotation is here to tell, to refer to which table in our database. So the name of our table will be task. So, and we want some unique constraints for it. It will be an array, so that's why we have to put it in brackets and say unique constraint. So, and we'll give it a name. By the way, you should always give your names, your constraints names, which is good practice. You get a better overview what kind of constraints you have in your project. This will be unique key. The UK stands for unique key, task description, task of our table, and description for our field, which will be added in a few minutes. And this refers to the column name. Description, this should also be given as an array. Maybe we will want to refer to multiple fields. This will be description. Okay, I hope I don't have a typo in here, but let's move on. Okay, as you might know, that every table should have an ID. For some rules, the Boy Scout rule, for instance, and so on. And this should also apply to our ORM. That's why we will add here the annotation ID, also from the Jakarta Persistence. And then we want to add generated value, which will just tell, basically this annotation is here to tell our database should create these values, the sequence for us. So the generator will use here generator and tell it it will be our task sequence. So task sequence, and the strategy we will apply here a generation type sequence. So okay, as you can see, I will explain in a short seconds what we have done here. So next, what we need is a sequence generator, which just gives more detail about the sequence we create here. So this sequence, yeah, we'll also call it task sequence. So basically, copy, paste here, and then we will write out the sequence name. So now it has to be a string, sorry for that. And we have to also give it an allocation of 1. And now just create the field, which will be our ID. And make sure you have also an ID field in your actual table, but I will show everything when we are going to the real database. Give an initial value of 1. Okay, so we have our first field in our task entity class, and just let me just quickly explain to you what is going to happen here. Okay, so let's start with AtGeneratedValue. This annotation is used to specify that the value of a field should be generated by a database. It is a JPA annotation and can be used with various strategies. And the strategy we used here is the sequence, that it should increment by 1. Basically, just in a sequence, it should be incremented. You can also use auto, identity, table, and I think UUID is new. Let's look it up. Indicate. Okay, UUID indicates that the persistent provider must assign primary keys for the entity by generating an RFC. Okay, nice. But we'll take the sequence. Yeah. So basically, our ID will be created by a sequence. That's why we have written this line here, and the sequence generator. This annotation is used to define a sequence generator for a field annotated with @GenerateedValue. It is a JPA annotation that allows you to specify the name and other properties of the sequence generator. Here, the sequence generator annotation specifies the name task sequence for the sequence generator and specifies that the allocation size is 1. So basically, we start by 1 and we will also increment by 1. Yeah. If you have further questions, I mean, you could Google it or check out my medium.com written post where I explain some of those things a little bit more in detail. So, for the task, next field, what we are going to need is description, because we need to describe what we are going to do with our task. So that's why I would say just create a field called description of type string and give it empty default value. Okay. And var, because we will later maybe want to do an update on the task and we want to change the description. That's why it's a var, and the ID will not change. That's why I've chosen the val. instead of var. And this field, because every task we have should not be empty, that's why I will annotate it with not blank, because this is now a check for our database. Maybe we do a mistake at the front-end side, or when we creating in a few minutes the dedicated data class for creating a task or updating a task. Maybe we do their mistake, our database will also check on the backend side that this field should not be blank, not be empty. And of course we have to specify which kind of column we are using. That's why we're using the column annotation now, and say this should refer to the description column in our table, and it should be never nullable. So this should never be, it should be never nullable. That's why we should set it as false, and we give it the unique constraint true. Okay, now just let me explain to you what is happening here. This field refers to our table in our database we will later have from task. We have a task table, and this task table has a field, a column, which is called description. And this field here has also a unique constraint, which I'm referring here to. It has a unique constraint because we don't want any task that has the same description, two tasks that has the same description. Like we have one task that has the description feed the cat, and another task has also the description feed the cat. This would not make any sense. That's why we have added this kind of constraints here, these unique constraints, and just make sure that that everywhere the description is not anywhere misspelled, no typos in here. That's why it is finding it everywhere, and this looks good for now. Okay. Hope you understand what I meant. If not, just write in the comment section that I need to be more specific. So I would say let's move on to our next column. Our next column, for our task, I would say we need some kind of a reminder. If you want to set the reminder for this task, let's say reminder 5 hours before the task should be completed, or a day before, that we should get a reminder. And this field will especially come in handy when we are developing the front end. And this field I will call isReminderSet. Just the is before the reminder set, because it should imply that it's a Boolean value, could be true or false. So as I said, it's a Boolean value, and by default we should set it as false, because not every task needs a reminder. This field we will also annotate it for column to specify which column it should refer to in our table. We will name this column in our Postgres table also as this reminder set. But it's more SQL light, I would say, to use here the underscores, not using camel case here. Yeah, this should be, I'm thinking, should be also nullable as false. False. Okay. Let's move on to our next field, which will be also a Boolean field. And this I will refer to isTaskOpen. And is also a Boolean field, as I said, and then I will set it by default to true, because normally when you create a task, it's open, right? I mean, you don't create a task that you finish in 2 seconds. maybe you need 5 hours, or you will finish a task in 1 day, in 2 days, in a week. And so it should be, the logical sense would be it should be true in the beginning. The default value should be true. Now, this column will also have a name. We just let me copy, paste it. Add the underscores here, this task open, and get rid of the uppercase O. So, and here, should it be nullable? I would say no. I wouldn't make sense to allow null values here, in my opinion. So the next field should be when the task is created, that we get can track. Okay, we created, I don't know, 2 tasks today, 3 tasks tomorrow, and that we can get track later on when we're building the front end, the Android app, and the web front end with Vue 3 and TypeScript, to see, okay, how many tasks we have created on specific days. So this will be createdOn, and should be from the type local datetime. Local datetime, and when we create it, it should get a. Actually, this field should be val, because we will not need to change it later on, and give it a default value by now. So it gets a time step when we create the task now. Better said, our task gets a time step when it gets created. So let's move on to color. And column, also, you know the drill, we give it a name, which will be this name, of course. So, okay, with underscore. So, this should be also not nullable, so that's why we are setting it also to false, so that our backend, the database checks that there is no null value for this kind of field for createdOn. The next field which we need for a task, I would say, is priority. So let's say priority. Okay. Yeah. And as you can see, there's already a priority interface provided by the Jakarta Annotation, but I want to create a custom priority just to show you some things. So that's why we will create a priority class. It will be an enum, because we will just say, okay, the priority is low, high, or medium. This will be by default when we are creating a class. If we are not explicitly saying something to it, it will be low. And here I want to also avoid null values, so it should be not null. And of course, we are using here an enum. We need the enumerated annotation. And of course, it's an what kind of enum it is, we have to specify it as well, enum type. And we can use here string. So this will be string values. Okay, as you can see, we don't have this class right now. So that's why in our data package here, I will create a new Kotlin class, which will be priority. Better said, now we can use here the enum class priority. Nice. And yes, so we have our enum class now, and as I said, we will give it the values low, medium, and high. So the priority can be low, medium, and high. And okay. Okay, it was just an ID error. It immediately took our priority class. And yeah, and this warnings here, just we have no data source. This will go away as soon as we add as data source the production database from Supabase, the Postgres database, or when we add the local development database. Okay, I think I will end this tutorial right now here. As I said, if something is unclear, just check out my medium.com article, which you will find in the description below. And if you have any other questions, just write something in the comment section. And otherwise, please be so kind, like and subscribe, so I'm still motivated to release new videos. And yes, see you soon in the next video. Ilalika!